So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the very first APAC regional fire session as part of the Design Leadership Program. We're going to be talking about what design leadership is today, some of the challenges facing design leaders, and some other interesting topics. We have some very interesting and amazing speakers who are going to be with us today. I will introduce them in a little bit, but before I get there, I just want to do a little bit of an introduction about ECHOS as an organization, if you're not fully aware of us. But as I mentioned before, please feel free to write in the chat where you're from. I'm going to say good evening from Sydney, but you may be somewhere where it's morning, so good morning or good afternoon. Please also let us know the type of designer you are, if you are a designer. If not, I'd love to know what you do as well. But very curious what type of designers are joining us today too. Speaking of designers, I'm a designer as well. So I'm a service designer. My name is Daniel Urachi. I'm also one of the coordinators for the Design Leadership Program here at ECHOS. I want to do a very, very quick introduction of Dan Levy. He'll be able to introduce himself better later on, but he is our regional ambassador for the Design Leadership Program. He's also the founder at More Space for Light. So we're very thrilled that he's going to be facilitating the talk later on in the session. We're a little bit about ECHOS as a company, as an organization, in case you're not familiar with us. We are an independent innovation lab, and we are driven by design. So everything we do is through the lens of human-centered design. So that's sort of, that's our general mission statement. And the way that we operate, we have 3 different units. So we have the School of Design Thinking, in which we have open programs and courses, the Design Leadership Program being one of those. We also have our innovation projects consultancy, where we consult for many organizations across the globe, clients like Google, Honda, Accenture, and many more. And we also have a ventures division, in which we seed and help accelerate startups that we see interesting potential and value in. And with the innovation projects, our aim and our purpose is to help businesses create value and innovate for good. And when it comes to the School of Design Thinking, the main purpose there is to help people and organizations master an innovation mindset and also learn the skills and tools in order to unlock that mindset as well. We are now a global company, given the way that the world operates, and we have people all over the world. We do have 3 main presences, one in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, one here in Sydney, Australia, where I'm currently based, and also in Lisbon, in Portugal. But we do consult for clients all over the world, and students come to our programs from all over the world as well. And a little bit about the impact we've been able to have in since 2011 when we started. There's been a combined total of more than 100,000 professionals that have gone through our programs, either at our courses or online. So either in our in-house campuses or online. We've also done more than 150 projects for our consulting practice as well. So we've had a lot of interesting experiences. We're also a member of the Global Design Thinking Alliance, which is a very great honor for us. The GTDA has a purpose of accelerating the value of design thinking globally. So we're very honored to be a part of that. We're also the only non-educational organization within that group. So it's an honor for us as well. A little bit about the Design Leadership Program before we kind of get into the discussion. So I mentioned the Design Leadership Program earlier. It's starting on the 12th of July. It is a 12-week program with a lot of very interesting topics. The main purpose is to help designers hone their skills and their craft as leaders. So not just as a design practitioner, but moving into design leadership spaces and helping you to bring that sort of value as you potentially move into these C-suite areas as well. So there's going to be a lot of very interesting topics that are covered We have things ranging from what is design leadership, what is the value of design, how do you articulate it, creating a vision, maintaining your team through to the last mile of design, and many more. So there's going to be quite a lot of interesting insight around a whole range of different topics. We're very excited as well about the leaders that are going to be joining us. So you can see here we have quite a lot of leaders who will be doing global masterclasses. These will be leaders sharing their insights and their stories and some of their tips and pointers, which will be very fascinating to hear from. We also are very lucky that we have an amazing group of regional leaders who will be actually facilitating more interactive workshops as well. And these will be a little bit more hands-on and will be much more on the practical side, or certainly interesting as well. So we're very happy to have such a great range of guests joining us. And we have some of those guests here today as well, who I'm about to introduce. So before I hand over to Dan, who's going to take over for the rest of the session, I just want to leave us with one little quote, or not so little quote, from Bruce Mao, the legendary designer. He was kind enough to join us for an episode of one of our podcasts earlier and had a lot of interesting insights to share. And just to get our minds thinking about the topic of design leadership, I thought this quote was quite poignant. So he writes, "To lead is to envision the future and then systematically work to realize the vision. That is exactly what designers at their best are doing every day. Leadership and design are both processes of social influence that aim to manifest a vision of what is possible." And with that, that's enough from me for the moment. I'm just going to hand over to Dan Levy, who's going to introduce himself and then introduce our other guests. So Dan is, as I said, our local ambassador, and all our guests today are going to be some of our regional workshop leaders in the design leadership program. So thank you very much. Dan, over to you.
Hi, thanks Dan. Thanks for handing over. Good evening, everybody. So my name's Dan Levy. I'm principal and founder of More Space for Light. More Space for Light is a corporate innovation and strategy consultancy, and our design-led approach to solving business problems helps leaders and teams overcome constraints related to strategy, product, service, or process. Our focus is often on creating new futures or experiences that are outside business as usual and are regarded as unknowns. We're mainly known for our transformation programs, which include design sprints. That's my introduction, and I'm going to pass the baton on. So I have only got Lital and Saumya and Dan in my screen, in my thought box. So I'm going to go downwards that way to Lital. I'll let you introduce yourself. How you doing, Lital?
Great, thank you. Thanks, guys. And hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Lital. I am the head of experience design at PageUp. It's a SaaS company. We are creating solutions for HR and talent management and talent acquisition mainly. We are a global team, but we are based, our headquarters is based in Melbourne, and I'm also based in Melbourne. In addition to that, I'm also the APAC curator of the DLF, which is the Design Leadership Forum by Envision. And I think you guys are also kind of collaborating a little bit with Envision, which is great, talking about ECOS. And when you are all becoming design leaders, we will be very excited to have you join our forum, and where we facilitate great events and discussions and support leaders kind of moving into their next level. And beside that, I am an advocate for DEI in everything that I do. So for me, that's a very, very big component of what I do as part of a design. It's my design leadership, and probably we'll talk about it a little bit later. Thanks, guys. I'll probably hand over to Saumya.
Thank you, Lital. Thank you. Very happy to be here today. I'm Saumya. I head design for OYO India. It's a hospitality, international hospitality startup. Part of working here was getting a multidisciplinary team together. I'm setting up the design studio for the startup, And that's something that we've done successfully over the period of 3 years now, and worked with a bunch of great designers, especially enjoy working with young designers. Apart from this, our expertise, particularly for this design studio, lies in scaling design, and sort of working with multiple disciplines to make that happen. Apart from that, I also consult for various startups on how to set up their design studios and get their design teams together. And yeah, that's basically me.
That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I felt the tension. I thought, don't give away any of the answers from some of the questions that we're going to ask. So you did well there. So I'm going to first ask you to take yourselves off of mute so we can make this as natural as possible, this discussion. And I just want to echo, no pun intended there, what Dan just said. Feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat, and Dan will call them out and we can build on them. So we're going to start this discussion. So we're going to have about a 30-minute discussion now. And we're going to start really small with a really small question. And the question we're going to start with is, why do you feel design leadership matters? And I'm going to ask Saumya, who's directly below me, Saumya, because I thought it'd be a nice way to segue into your introduction before I invite Lital. And Lital, if you've got anything to add, please do.
Yeah, it's a really small question, not heavy at all.
Tiny, it's just tiny.
Yes, not tiny. I think personally, design leadership matters because it brings a very different way of looking at a problem. How you're solving a problem. I think designers are just equipped with a unique mind, and I think that's one of the advantages of why design leadership matters. And the second would be, I think it just makes the business better in my personal experiences. I think when you have strong design leadership, there's innovation. There is, like I said, a unique way of solving problems. So I think that would be my top 2 reasons of why it matters.
Can I just ask you and follow on from that? When did you know that design leadership was a thing?
This is interesting because I personally did not come to it as, in my journey, I haven't stepped into it as saying you are a design leader. It happened in a very organic way. I'm primarily, my core lies in designing, so I'm first a designer. And suddenly I was, I was put into situations where I was asked to work across functions, work with other people, get in more designers and start training them. And I have to say it was a bit haphazard in the beginning. It wasn't something that was planned, but then slowly I learned how I can be a person of influence, and how I can influence the business, and which was a very apt way, as Dan started with that particular quote. I think it just happened very organically. But looking back at it, I would really like more leaders to step up and be very aware that they are leaders in this space, and that they are influencers and they will influence business decisions, and they are capable of contributing in every single way. So yeah, that's just how it happened to me.
That's awesome. And I just picked up on the word organic. Lital, was it organic for you? Did you turn around one day and go, well, I'm a leader, or how did you kind of realize your position?
Interesting question. Yeah, I think it was organic for me as well. I think I kind of realized that there is a need, and I stepped up and took some actions on it, and then this is kind of how I became a design leader. It was actually my first job after uni, when I realized that we have some misalignments and we actually need to advocate for design a bit more, and we actually need to educate our clients about what design is. That was back in the days when I worked in an agency and I worked in advertising, but it was 16 years ago. So that was, a very long time ago when UX wasn't really a thing back then, and people didn't know what user research is at all. But I think even then, people started kind of to talk about the needs of the clients, the needs of the users. It's not just about making things pretty, right? So for me, that was really when kind of the penny dropped for me, and I said, like, why are we still doing those things? Like, what are we actually trying to impact here? How are our or the user of our clients are going to use the system or use our small e-commerce website when they're just kind of starting to appear everywhere. So yeah, that was something. And also I must add that I'm originally from Israel, and serving in 2 years in the military in Israel. I think a lot of Israelis, it's come natural to them to become leaders. And I think that's probably something, because of my experience and background, that was something that was really natural for me just to pick up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I just want to ask, I can see Massimo's asked a couple of questions in the chat, but I want to ask just in regards to, rather than going into the team, which I know Saumya will really be able to talk about as well as yourself, Lital, but how did you, like, going back to this whole concept of matter, like what you're doing has meaning and matter, how did you convey that to clients and as well as in the industry in regards to putting yourself in a position of leadership?
You're asking me, sorry,
yeah, I'm asking you.
Yeah, back then it was really
I don't have
just
to answer these.
Yeah.
Unless I want to, or you invite me to. Good.
I think back then it was really kind of trial and error, because I really didn't know what to do. It was really new for me. So I, kind of started to look around, to read resources, to approach people, kind of to understand a little bit more of, the practice of design. This is where I discover UX, and, started kind of to educate myself for it. That was what kind of happened back then. But I think to your point, and maybe go back, if you don't mind, kind of to the first question, why design leadership matters. I think design leadership matters because design leaders, and again, design leaders don't have to be managers per se, but I think their role is really about advocating for design across the business and in different parts of the business that don't really understand what design is. And unfortunately, I think design is still kind of the new kid on the block. A lot of companies understand the importance of product management and of course engineering, and a lot of companies are moving to become product-led those days. But design-led organizations, I don't see a lot, especially in APAC. And I think this is where design leaders can really make an impact. And this is where I see the most important need, or the most important value that design leaders can add. It's really about setting up an environment that their teams can operate in and be successful. So they need to influence and advocate for design all the time. And honestly, that's what I do. And that's what I've done for the first year when I joined PageUp, for example. This is what I've done. Had discussions, ongoing discussion all the time about the same topics and why design should be involved in those things, and why should we have a seat on the table, and how I can really show the value, and how can we work together, and how can I show the ROI, and what are the tools that we need to use to really show the value the design can bring, which is way more than just making things pretty. And I think it's way more than even product design. So today there is an understanding of product design, but for me, design is way more than that. Design is organizational design, behavioral design. I'm sorry if I'm kind of answering question that you'll ask later, but it's much broader than what I believe most businesses think about design.
Sure, and that's fantastic. Yeah, and I agree with you. And I'm kind of picking up that, there's two kind of streams that are coming out from what you're talking about. There's design itself as a function or as a craft. Well, we see design as two things mainly, as a craft and a capability. but you're talking more as well about philosophy as well. And Saumya, I'm gonna ask you to go and reach down on that unmute button, because I know that you actually go out, like you've got your own independent practice and you go out and work with others, and you actually kind of convey your philosophy to others that aren't within your kind of in your company. Could you talk a bit about that, how you go about that?
So I'm going to just say a couple of things before I get to that. Is that I can relate to whatever Lital's talking about in terms of everything that she has actually said, and the thing that stands out, which I can relate to the most, is the fact that as leaders, you have to educate and advocate and sensitize people constantly, be it your own internal organization or your external clients. You have to constantly be the ambassador and talk about it. That is one thing that directly applies into starting your own practice as well. So when I started my own practice and I started working with other designers or collaborating with other designers and started working with clients, it was slightly easy in a way that I was on one side of it working with designers, and we all understand our languages. We may be from different disciplines, but then to be able to translate that and to put it out there for the client to understand, and for them to understand the vision of what we're trying to do for them, that's where it gets a little tough. So that's where it's really important to push the advocacy and to sort of educate them and sensitize them, and sort of find ways to get them excited about why we're doing this as opposed to doing something else. I think that's one of the most difficult as well as important things to do in terms of running my own practice or working with an organization.
Sure. And just touching on the other in regards to conveying that philosophy, I'm going to move on to the next question in a moment, but I'm just really interested because, unlike Lital that has a team and leads a team, you kind of go in and you work with others, and you kind of, you're almost like a mentor. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so I work on both sides. So doing working in my own practice and then working with organizations. So with the philosophy bit, I think, are you trying to ask me how do we transfer that to others who don't really, who are non-designers and who don't? It's really difficult, actually. I think it's a case-to-case kind of sort of scenario. So my specialization lies in spatial and furniture design. So for example, for an external project, if we get a project and we're working on it, and we need to make the client understand what the space is going to look like, you can show them 3Ds and you can sort of show them drawings, but it only gets you so far. Because they're not designers, so the vision doesn't really, come. So part of it is actually trust, building an underlying trust with the people that you're working with, so that they trust you on the decisions that you make. And the second part is a lot of it comes with experience and making mistakes, honestly. I think that's just pretty much, in a nutshell, that's the philosophy.
Everyone's nodding there. Yeah. You want to see the scars, the bad decisions.
And I think don't hide them. Initially, I think a lot of people, like especially young designers, want to hide those scars, but those are the accelerated learning points, over a period of time. That's who you are because of it. So I think those are two things that I guess helps you in the process, or what I would say, understanding and transferring that philosophy to others.
That's awesome, and we're gonna move on to.
I just want to quickly echo what Saumya said.
I love it.
Just really echo that and say, I think as designers, we need to allow ourselves to make mistakes, and for leaders to allow our teams to make mistakes, small mistakes. But it's really all about learning and improving what we do. And we need to celebrate those things as well.
Yeah, well, you know, as a designer, it's all about demonstrating vulnerability, because when you show your craft, it's whether however personal it is, it's part of the team. Whenever you show something creative, it's something outside the ordinary. So you should demonstrate that vulnerability. So not just outwards, but inwards as a leader, you must be comfortable. And when we facilitate, you know, we mess up. The design process is it's like a horrible wave, like when you're in it and you bring people along on that journey. So yeah, vulnerability is like massive, massive. Now we're going to move on to the, sorry, I cut you off. Did you want to add anything on top of that before we move on to the next question?
No.
I'm really excited. But then the next one, and this really comes back to the conversation we were having the other day, Lital, because you're growing your team at the moment. You shared with me. I've got memory like an octopus. And the question we want to ask you is, how can you scale a design team? And not just in regards to bringing people on, but you'll have, like, PageUp has a set philosophy. Like, how do you bring people into that and also get them to comply to your strategy, the beats of your strategy?
That's a really great question, and I can share with you. We actually had my team and I we had a planning day today, and one of the activities that we've done is to do a skill assessment map. So I wanted it to be a collaborative discussion where we map out all the different skills that we need as a design team. So every skill that we need there based on themes, but it's not for one person, it's across the team. And then what we want to do with that is to do a skill assessment for each one of the team members to identify where do we have, you know, the skills covered well and where do we have gaps. So when we're going out and recruiting another designer, we actually have now 3 open roles. We know exactly what we're looking for. So it's not just about, you know, all the product designers need to have the same skills and all the researchers need to have those skills. I mean, yes, of course that we want everyone to have some basic skills, but at the end of the day, if one product designer is really good in UI and they can uplift someone else's UI skills, you know, that's great, because we, you know, and what I said before, it's all about kind of upskilling ourselves, learning from each other, just being better in the craft. And for me, this is a really good way where I can actually hire more junior people. And there are junior people, there are so many at the moment. And there are so many open jobs, but everyone is recruiting a senior or a lead or a head of or whatever it is, right? And juniors don't have kind of a place to really to enter the industry. And this is really unfortunate. And I personally love hiring grads and juniors because, you know, selfishly, I can shape them up the way I want them to be. And I can teach them the things that I want them to know. So unfortunately, I can't hire just juniors, right? So what we're trying to do is to hire 1 grad a year and really to give them a chance. You know, they will move between the different team members and they will work on different projects. And then at the end, if we will indeed hire them, which we'll most likely will do after 12 months, then we will decide where they want to be and where are the needs of the business. So for me, it's really understanding the different skills, but also hiring for potential, what people call soft skills. I don't like the word soft skills because to me, those skills are actually much harder to develop. So I'll call them people skills. Those are the most important skills that I will hire for. If someone is not great at doing one-on-one interviews, that's fine. They can learn how to do that. It's all about their potential, their ability to grow, their ability to learn, their lack of ego, or, you know, we all have egos, so not too much ego, ability to get feedback, to receive and give feedback to others, be a team player. So those are really the most important components. And I just want to add, so this is, you know, how to build a design team, but just a quick one, you know, PageUp, for example, it's a pretty small company. We're only 230 people today. So we can't just, you know, I have a limited budget and I can do whatever I can with this budget. But one of the things to kind of scale the design is really also, in my opinion, is to get other people to practice design as well. So it doesn't mean that they become designers, but they are collaborating with the designers, and designers are kind of setting up the scene. They're creating this space for collaboration, for creativity, for people to come together, you know, ideate on a problem, design and experimentation to validate the solution. And I really found that this way, it's a great way to upskill your design practice in the company, but it actually even a better way to create, you know, raving fans to design. So everyone now want to be, we actually have people from within the business that want to move to my team, because the design team is such a cool team, and you do all the amazing stuff, you make such a huge change and impact. And, you know, that's a huge win for me.
That's awesome. It sounds like I want to join your team. Like,
You should.
like, I'm not a grad though. But I just want to pick up on two things you said. The skill assessment, I think that's really smart. And something we've used in some of the programs we've run, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, is a skill map. The concept comes out of games consoles, and for those that aren't familiar, the skill map, just look up skill map games, and it's basically almost like an inventory. It's one of those words that puzzles me as I say it. Inventory. And it just like it's full of different attributes of skills, and it doesn't mean that set person has to tick all those boxes. It just means it gives you an idea. And also, touching on what you said in regards to soft skills and values, a really good book is a book called The Ideal Team Player, and I'm sure Dan might type it out, put it in the chat. Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. Hopefully I haven't butchered his name, Massimo, because it's an Italian name, so I wasn't too sure to go Lencioni. Ideal Team Player, yep. And they talk about 3 virtues. It's really good, especially in your leadership domain. Hungry, I wrote hungry twice. Hungry, humble, and smart. So really worth checking them out. I hope I haven't butchered them. Those 3 things. You can check that out. There's plenty of information about that. And Saumya, I'm gonna ask you as well, because I know you've grown design teams. So maybe, what's your approach? How do you scale design team?
I think the first thing is to understand how the organization works. I think that's an important understanding that one must have when you are either building the team or scaling the team. So you need to kind of first understand the kind of work or the workload that's coming to you, because that's what you're working towards. So that's important. I think some amount of structure in your head as a leader is important when you're starting to build the team or scale the team. You know, how were you sort of structuring the team, and you know, when there are young designers and there's slightly senior designers, and then there are super senior designers. So how do you actually make them work together? I think another skill assessment, like you guys said, that's bang on. That's something that one must do. And I think that should happen constantly. It shouldn't be like a one-time, thing. It should probably happen constantly in the team every 6 to 8 months, maybe, or as the need may be. I think another important thing to do is to not limit your designer. And I strongly believe in that. So in my team, if there are people who are who are spatial designers, but they want to explore another discipline of design, then that's something that I should be able to create opportunities for them to do. So I think limiting a designer is something that one must not. And I think another important thing would be to not let them be isolated. So the work shouldn't happen in isolation, because that doesn't help anybody. So I think even within the team, everybody should be aware of each other's work. And I think just cross-functionally also people should be aware of the work. There shouldn't be any isolated work that's happening or a designer working in isolation. I think those are a couple of things that are important in scaling and sort of putting a team together.
Can I just ask you, because you spoke about no limits, And you spoke about giving designers opportunity, like laterally across different disciplines. I'm just wondering, like, as you build on their leadership capabilities, are there any kind of, and this is open as well to you, Lital, so feel free to chime in. Is there anything that you guys do to help them build their leadership capabilities, build their confidence?
I think the one thing that I do is sort of do constant one-on-ones with my designer. And then I also like to do a small thing where I try to tell them to put down on a chit or just on a piece of paper 3 things that they want to explore or do in the next 1 year or in the next 6 months. And then I think, because that gives me a good idea where the designer wants to go and what they want to do. And then I try and see if there are opportunities, or we can create opportunities for that to happen. Because if the designer has potential, it's a pity if it's not explored, in my opinion. So I think those are just small things. And then I think just if you're putting a team together and you're leading them, you have to be aware of, who they are and what their style of working is. I think as designers, we all have something that we have strongly. I believe more than any other I think profession is empathy, because that's just a default thing that all of us have. So I think that's it's important to sort of spread that in the team as well. And I think that helps. It's helped grow the team and grow potential within the team. And surprises you. You were looking for a resource, but it might just be within your team. You never know. So until you do that, you wouldn't really find out. So
you're so kind. Like, I just don't respond to the emails and let them figure it out and use initiative, and then check back with them at the end of the day so they're done, and slowly put them out of their comfort zone. Sorry, Lital, I snuck in there. Go for it. What are you gonna say?
So in PageUp, in general, when for all our leaders, and when we identify someone that can move to a leadership role, we give them a leadership training. So that's just something in general about leadership, how to be a good empathetic leader, and how to be a good manager for your team, and and kind of understand the basics and kind of the practice. And what I like to do with my team is to identify that someone is interested and is about to be ready to become a design leader, and then we do kind of a skills assessment map to understand where the gaps are, and then we will identify those opportunities. So for example, I have now someone that is very close to move to a leadership role. So she's doing more kind of a mentoring sessions with 2 people in the business. So this is an opportunity for her kind of to practice this leadership, and how to give feedback to people, and how to give them some task, and to wait and let them fail, and not micromanage them. So it's and I think it's kind of similar a little bit to what Saumya said, is also about where they want to be, and where what are the kind of the skills that they're missing at the moment. And I think a lot of the time it will be confident, and sometimes people will say, I'm not ready to take a leadership role. I'm not sure when I'll be ready. But I don't think anyone will be ready for the next step until they'll do it, So we can give them all the support that we possibly can, but until they actually, try it out, it will be difficult for them to say, I'm 100% ready now. So it's really about trying, right? So trying with small things, or managing, you can manage 1 person, for example, and then you'll get more people once you are more confident and you see that you're doing a good job, and so on. So I think it's kind of identifying and giving them really all the support that they need, and really trust them that they can do it, and show them that we trust them.
That's awesome. I was just going to ask, in regards to your leadership program, exclusively just focusing on designers, how many of them have, you know, under your tenure gone on to leadership roles, and what does that look like?
So sorry, the training is for all the leaders in the business, not just for designers?
Oh yeah, I understand that, but just in regards to, like, because we're talking about designers moving into leadership positions, I'm just wondering how successful it's been for people in your, you know, in that organization, and also how much of them have shown an appetite to go in that role. Like, have they been scared to lose their kind of design role to go into that position or that track?
No, not really. So all the people that moved to design leadership since I joined, that was, I think, 3 or 4 people moved to a leadership role, but it was all people that were actually keen to do that they wanted to move to this next level, and they thought they'll, you know, they'll be good. If someone doesn't want to do that, I never want to push someone to become a leader. Because if someone is not interested in managing people, they're probably not going to do a really great job. And for me, leadership, if you are a people leader, your team is the most important thing, right? So for me, like my team, if you know, I'm a manager at the moment, my team is what, you know, what I'll take care of the most. So if I need to choose between, you know, business and team, I'll choose my team all the time. And everyone knows that across the business, by the way. Like, that's my role, to protect them and to give them the environment. Doesn't mean that I won't give them feedback, or I won't be, you know, upset or unhappy, or, you know, or tell them that they need to change something. But at the end of the day, I'm passionate about leading people, and this is why I'm in this position. If someone doesn't want to do that, I think they really shouldn't.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lital. I just want to respond to Massimo. I just want to say, being a leader entail managing people? I don't think so. I think you just demonstrate those leadership attributes, and people will look up to you and they will respect you, because that becomes part of your brand and part of who you are. Now, I'm going to just move across to the next question, because I'm really mindful of time this evening, and I want to make sure we have enough time for more questions from everyone. So really, everyone, please just keep putting things in the chat. And the next question we're going to ask you guys is, I'm just going to wait for it's just going to switch over in a minute. I might do a little drum roll. As we switch across. Awesome. How to lead change and influence business decisions. How this is a big one, because, like, within the domain of design, how do we step outside that domain, and how do we help to lead change? We've spoken a bit, I think, Lital, you spoke about how Australia is a little bit behind the rest of the world, but I'm going to start with Saumya this time in regards to this. For you, like, how do you lead change? How do you inspire others, or what do you hear from others in regards to this question?
To start with, I would say you have to have some people in your pocket, like some of them have to believe in you within the organization, or have to believe in your ability. That's alone, no battle is won alone. So you gotta have your design ambassadors by your side. I'm going to bring a personal experience of mine in this, because I think that would be the best way to sort of get to this question. Before we started the studio at OYO, initially there was testing for a particular product via spatial design, as to, can that be a viable business? Can that product be successful in the market? And to do that, I started the testing with a couple of spaces and properties. And we worked and prototyped and did testing, and eventually it was sort of discovered that there was far more revenue created or value created for the brand. There was revenue created, value created, and there were better results overall for those particular spaces which were designed and then sort of shared across with the customers and the audience. And that bit of testing was became so important that it made itself into the business decision that came out of it was to actually roll out that product, work on it, develop it further, and bring it into the market. So, and I think design was so very important in making that decision. It was such a big influence on that product. And 2 years down the line, the product was one of the first product in the companies that actually showed a profit within a very short span of time. So I think that is one of the biggest testament to how you can influence business decision and how design can lead change and how it brings in value. But like I said, I wasn't alone in doing that. Like I had ambassadors who worked with me, who cross-function, that collaborated with me, that believe that this is something that can happen. And then me and my team kind of worked on it, and that's one of the solid experiences that I've had in terms of influencing a business decision.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. How about yourself, Lital?
So I want to actually talk about change, right? Like I think change is something that so many people are afraid of, but I really think that as leaders, and especially design leaders, we should actually embrace change. And honestly, I think every business should change all the time. Like we live in a world that is always changing, and technology is changing, and we have every business have more and more and more competitors all the time. So change is just part of what we do, and how we and especially for designers, and especially in tech, and we just need to embrace it. So I would say, first of all, we just need to accept the fact that the world is changing, and our what we do will change, and how we impact the business will change, and hopefully for the best, right? And without those changes, design wouldn't even be a thing. So I would say, let's first of all accept the fact that it's changing, and try to kind of embed it in a culture of of ever evolving, ever changing. So if that's something that we can do in our teams and in our businesses, and we can start with our teams because it's probably going to be easier, and give this space for our team to try new things, and and to fail, and to try other things, and to change what they want to do as well. So if they want to move, and we discussed it before, if someone is starting as a UI designer, for example, but they realize that they're actually already interested in research, awesome, let's move to research if we can actually do that at whatever time. So I think it's about creating this space of change, and it's okay, and we shouldn't fear change. We should really embrace it. And I think within this change, as long as we're comfortable with that, I think we can be in a really good position to actually influence on this change, and what it should be. And I think it's kind of very similar to what Saumya said. It's about influencing. So and for me, it's about influencing. It's really about building connections and building trust with different people that don't necessarily even know what we do. So finding those ways that we can create connections with people, and kind of demonstrate the value that we can add to them and to their business unit. So honestly, today, my team doesn't really need me as much as a leader. They are great, super skilled. They can really, honestly, I don't need to, I'm their manager to create this space.
It's just being recorded. Don't say that. They need you. Of course they need you. Don't be daft.
Yeah. But what I do now is not so much, being of course I'm still the manager, and I give them, whatever they need. But what I do now is more advocating for design outside of my team, but also outside of product. So really showing the value of design in sales, and in support, and customer success, and marketing, and all of those things that don't necessarily understand the value of design. So moving more kind of to CX, or service design, and how can we embed design in different parts of the business, and especially in B2B, it can be so complex. So I think it's about really finding those small opportunities, and starting small, and just building on that.
Can I ask you if you could give us an example of you going out? Say for instance, you've gone out to a piece part of the business, say finance, perfect. So and you've come in, you're trying to convey the value of design. What would be your approach, or can you give us an example?
So something that I was actually really happy to say that I achieved recently is every 6 months we run what we call an innovation practice, which is really about design thinking, right? But we call it innovation because people hear design thinking, they think it's only designers, we don't know what it is. So that's something that I was able to really influence the CEO and all the executive to support me in doing that. So we've done it, the first time that we've done it was 3 months after I joined the company. And we had an agency to really help me kind of to create all those materials and to roll it out with our executive team, senior and middle management, but also all the designers and product managers and engineering. But now that's me, and I have a team of around 10 people from across the business that are kind of supporting. We call them the innovation champions. And every 6 months for all the new starters, we're running those 2 days workshop when we talk about design and why design is something that every single person can benefit from, not just in the business, but also in their personal life and you know, designing your life. This is a great book, for example. So, and I also demonstrate how design is being impactful in the world. In, you know, different people are using it, different teams, different methods. So this is kind of, you know, the first way that we do that and really advocate for design. And then those people themselves are really becoming those advocates, and they say, oh, we've been in this workshop, we've been in this training, that was so great. Can we now run an ideation, or can we experiment with something, or can you help us to do some discovery around a problem? We're not really sure what to do here. So what we do is, like, this champion group is really supporting everyone across the business to embed design in those business units.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And the approach we have is we just ask them a big hairy question: who is your customer? And then they have to start thinking about that, because they don't think about where does your next product go, and then that kind of leads into the service design of helping them. That's something as well. Yeah, so that's awesome. That innovate. I'm really interested. Do you have anything that you could point anyone to in regards to links and things like that, where people could learn about stuff like that? No,
the innovation. It's actually internal, so I can't, unfortunately.
Okay, no, I'm just wondering, because NWG out of England, the water company, they have an innovation festival as well. So that's awesome. So yeah. I know we've got 4 minutes left, and we were meant to have a quick fire round, but you guys were just like, I didn't want to interrupt your flow, and it's just been amazing. So, and I'm just seeing all the questions come up in the chat. Massimo's like super active, so thank you, Massimo. And should we move down? I'm gonna call you off of mute, bud. You've been sitting there in the background lurking, cracking your neck. Should we do the Q&A? Should we ask people, should we open the floor to some questions before we go? Because we've got 4 minutes, and I know you've got an outro.
Sure. So I think there's been some good questions in the chat during. So I've just gone through, I think maybe, I know Andrew had an interesting one looking at, can we discuss how do you move an organization from a quick win, where it's just sort of, let's get something quick out there, and that's sort of, it's kind of like coming off a sugar high, and then moving that towards a long-term systemic design-led organization, which Lital mentioned was lacking in APAC. So maybe thoughts on that. That's cool.
I'm really interested, because Saumya, you're based in India, aren't you? That's right. And I'd love to know your perspective of that.
So it is a pretty the scenario is pretty glim that way. Quick win is a serious thing. I think when it comes to work, everything seems to be on fire all the time, and you need to like kind of get it out, get it done, right? I think the only way to approach this is, as Lital has mentioned before, is advocacy, making them understand the design process, pushing and educating and sensitizing the organization or the people that you're working with that this is not beneficial, in the long term. It's not sustainable practice. It's just literally like conditioning day in and day in and day out. I don't think there is another way to move around it. And it has to be done in small doses. It can't just be done, I'm gonna take like 10 days because it's a systematic approach, and business and other functions are just gonna throw their hands up. And this is a serious problem in the APAC region, especially where I work, in this part of the world. So I think it's just slow and easy, one day at a time, shift a little, and sort of make them understand the process and show them the value of what time can do with design, and then lead that into how beneficial it is for the business, like I said. So that would be the approach that I would.
That's awesome. How about yourself, Lital? Do you have anything to add on top of that?
So I think moving from quick wins to kind of more strategic direction is both product and design led, right? So businesses that are moving to be more product led should definitely practice that. And if they're not, they're probably don't have a good product function. And I think it's really about showing. So just agreeing with Saumya, it's about really showing the value of you. Stop doing that. And I think it also depends on the business that you're operating in. In B2B, potentially, I mean, it can be harder, but also it can be, easier to do. When you have customers screaming at you that we must have that and we have to do that, and you are keep, prioritizing those requests from customers, this is not sustainable, and you can't keep on doing that. What you want to do is to be more proactive and actually show your customers, this is what we're going to work on for the next 1, 2, 3 years. This is our opportunity roadmap. This is where we are going to scale our system. This is what we're going to give you. So we were actually talking about experiences. So for example, I can tell you, working in HR and in talent acquisition space, it's also about identifying the trends in the market. So today, for example, especially because of COVID and all of that, candidate experience is a huge topic, and probably all of you have seen it. And if you were looking for jobs, you probably realize that the experience with most companies is not great. So how can we really take advantage of that and not just create a better product for our customers, but also educate them and support them in improving their processes when they are going out and have open roles, so they can have the best talent, so they can have a better employer brand, and so on. So to me, this is really identifying those opportunities and looking at, doing some potentially market sensing, understand how can you measure the value and how many customers you can impact by doing that, and try to show the ROI of that when you are being actually more strategic and taking initiatives, and being really the leader in your space instead of kind of following competitors and just working on quick wins.
That's
it's
awesome.
not easy, I would say.
Nothing's easy, eh?
Yeah. But I'm just gonna add like a quick thing to what Lital had just talked about. I think another part of being a design leader is, like she said, forecasting and knowing the trends that are coming. You have to have the vision, and then also maybe quietly work towards it before it becomes a thing which is on fire. Just anticipating that and getting there, and then showing the value of that work, that this was being systematically worked on because you could see that as a leader and work with your team towards it. I think that's something that a design leader should have.
That's awesome. Thank you guys, and really good insights there. Now I am going to hand over to Dan now, because I believe that's Dan's going to close us out.
Thank you. Yes, unfortunately that's time. As interesting as these discussions were, we always have to end them at some point, although we could listen for hours. I'm just going to quickly wrap up. There's just a couple of slides I want to very quickly run through. But before I do that, I just want to really thank Dan for doing an amazing job of leading such an interesting discussion, and Lital and Saumya for contributing such fascinating insights. And also to everyone for your questions in the chat, for being here. Thank you so much, everyone. Well done all. So I'm just going to very quickly run through a few little points on the Design Leadership Program as we wrap up. So there's more that you can learn in terms of the format. So it'll be running from July the 12th through to September the 29th. The global masterclasses from Australia's time zone or APAC's time zone will be running on Mondays or Tuesdays, depending on the day, 8 p.m. or 9 a.m., depending on the day as well. They're live, but you can also watch them recorded later in case you can't make them, and they're about 90 to 120 minutes. And then the local workshops where you'll have the amazing leaders like Dan and Lital and Saumya as well, will be on the Wednesdays from 5:30 p.m. Sydney times, and they'll be longer sessions, so it'll be much more interactive. Also, please don't miss the potential opportunity. If you are interested in signing up, you can use this code on the left-hand side for 20% off. So if you do want to sign up, make sure you get a discount because it's always helpful. And if you have any questions about the program, there's an email here for Luna Pigato, who is one of our sales managers and can help you through any questions you might have about the program as well. So please feel free to reach out to her. There's a QR code here on the right that will take you to the program page if you want to learn more about it as well. And one last thing before we go, we also have an ebook, which is a free download, which is has some more insights around what design leadership means. It even has some interviews with some of our leaders as well. So feel free to grab a copy of that. There's a QR code there as well. So feel free to jump over. And the last thing is we have 2 more fire sessions coming up. There's a global one, which is going to be interesting. That's on the 23rd of June. We also have another APAC fire session on the 28th of June, where we have Dan is going to join us again, which is amazing. We also have Alessandro from Westpac and Matt from Google. So that's going to be another fascinating talk as well. So that's it from me and all of us. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And hopefully we'll hear from you all soon and see you at the next sessions. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you all. Thanks.
Thanks all.